Hey everybody, Minion Soldier Piracy Show, let's go. So, lately of course, the Pioneer has been the big talk of the town. Everyone is talking about it, debating the value of it, so on and so forth. But what does a ship like this really mean? I mean, apart from, say, being a vehicle that hops someone pretty much to an endgame state. Now, there really isn't a classic end game in Star Citizen. There aren't levels. Like, you aren't leveling 1 to 60 and then all of a sudden you're maxed out and you have these talents and these traits. It's not that kind of game. But there are certain overall similarities. If you get to, say, a Polaris, an Idris, a Pioneer, something like that, chances are your earning potential is going to be a heck of a lot higher than a guy who's just bought himself an Aurora game package and is just starting out. Now, one of the debates, one of the points that always comes up with the big ships is, oh, where am I going to get a crew? Oh, I'll just get an NPC crew and that'll be just as good. That'll work out for me. And I'm sure the NPCs will, their AI will be genius, you know, Einstein level, and everything will work out just fine. I don't need other players to populate my ship. But there's a lot of players who are in this Aurora situation. There's a lot of backers out there who maybe just have an Aurora, or they were like, oh no, I'm going to get a Gladius, or ooh, I'm going to get a Hornet or a Super Hornet, and that's all they got. But they still want to have that big earning potential that really kind of comes with those big ships. Now, how do we know that there's going to be big earning potential with big ships? Well, it's fairly straightforward. If you have a cargo ship that carries 50,000 metric tons of cargo, and this guy's got an Aurora that carries maybe 1 metric ton of cargo, your return per trip is obviously going to be a lot higher than his, and the same is true of military vessels. If he can go out and fight, you know, 3 pirate Auroras that are messing with a comms relay, and he gets 1,500 credits. Well, if you go out in a Polaris and you fight off a squadron of Vandal Void Bombers that are attacking the system, I don't think they're going to give you just 1,500 credits for that. I doubt 1,500 credits would even cover one of your torpedoes. Probably a lot higher than that for those suckers. So chances are you're with the bigger ship. I don't know, not chances are. Almost assuredly, 99.99999%, you're going to have a much higher earning potential to go along with the much higher running expenses and responsibilities of a larger ship. And then you're thinking, oh, well, what do I do? You know, how do I get a crew together? Do I want to get a crew together? Do I have to pay them out? All these questions kind of point to the fact that, you know, you should be able to make a lot of money with these big ships. And one of the things that you can do that can attract people to basically get on your ship and crew your ship for you is the fact that they now can get a share of that higher earnings potential. So when people are looking at it and they're saying, oh, I'm going to get like an all NPC crew, I always kind of find that a little weird, just because, yeah, on the one hand, it is convenient, true enough, 100%, but having intelligent people hopefully that you like, doing these things on your ship is probably better than having NPCs do it. And by doing that, you're kind of helping someone else move up through the, you know, through the levels, so to speak. What it might take them a month to do on their own, you can help them do in a couple of days. You know, it reminds me of a story. You know, we're gonna break off. We're gonna go off on a bit of a tangent here. A long time ago, we're talking way back when I was playing Wrath of the Lich King. I was a Retribution Paladin, yada yada, geared the whole 9, level 80, everything's great. And all of a sudden, one day in guild chat, I see this shaman who's level 40. And for those of you who don't know, in the old game under the old system, at level 40, shamans transitioned from level armor or leather armor to chainmail. So they had to get like basically a whole new set of gear. And this guy was complaining, he's like, oh my god, I gotta get all, I just turned level 40, I finally got my mount. Back then, level 40 was when you got your mount. At least I think it was level 40. They might have bumped it down to 30 at that point, I don't know. But he still had the slow mount. And, you know, he needed all new gear, all new weapons, because he was, like, I mean, he was just in guild chat just complaining about it. He's like, oh my god, I thought maybe I could go into PvP and get some weapons through that, but I just get destroyed every time. I don't know what to do. It's like I'm stuck. What am I supposed to do? And I'm watching this in guild chat, and I'm sitting in Dalaran, and I said, you know what? F it. And I told this guy, I just started typing in guild chat, and I said, listen, empty all your bags into your bank and meet me in Stranglethorn Vale. Like, why? And I said, trust me, just do it. So he does it. I invite him to a group. I meet him in Stranglethorn Vale. I, of course, had the Mechano Hog at this point, which is the 2-person motorcycle. I said, hop in. He's like, oh my god, you can put 2 people? I said, yes, you can put 2 people in this thing. And so he's like, where are we going? I was like, Sunken Temple, don't worry. I said, did you empty out your bags? He's like, yeah, I don't have anything. He's like, aren't I going to need food and potions? And like, no, trust me, dude, relax. So, you know, we skirt all the way around, you know, through Deadwind Pass and all the way down into the Black Morass, and we go into Sunken Temple. And I tell this guy, I go, all right, look, I am going to kill everything. Your only job is to loot shit and not die. That is your job. Of course, this was before AoE looting, all this sort of shit. So this guy goes in with empty bags. And by the time we're done, which is probably about 30-40 minutes later, and this was the old Sunken Temple. This is like the 20 boss version of Sunken Temple that was almost all of the bosses dropped wicked chainmail, axes, hammers, all kinds of good stuff for a shaman. This guy who had nothing and who was stuck ends up walking out packed to the brim with blues and gold and cloth and potions and all kinds of shit. He's like, now I've got the opposite problem. I don't know what to do with all this shit. And it's like, well, you're gonna have to go to Orgrimmar and figure out what to do with all that stuff, but you got gear now, buddy. You have to kind of understand the way things were at that time. For those guys, you know, I might look at those weapons and be like, oh my god, that's trash, or I should just disenchant that, or blah 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 blah. For those guys, those weapons, they didn't have heirlooms, right? Leveling back then wasn't the joke that it is now. For those guys, those weapons could buy them 5 levels, maybe 7 levels of usage, depending on where you went. And this kind of, like, people started whispering me, and they're like, hey, I'm on a paladin, I'm level 50, and there's a really good sword that I want to get, and it's in Lower Blackrock Spire. Can you help me out? It's like, sure, no problem. And I would just go in and I would just murder the whole instance, and I'd be like, loot it up, buddy, loot it up. And they'd be like, oh my god, you know, if there was any realism in that game at all, these guys would be walking out like some kind of like pack mule or something like that with like 500 pounds of bags on their back. It was ridiculous, but it just became this thing that I would do for fun whenever, you know, there wasn't a heroic to run or a raid to go on. I would look around and be like, oh, you're level 50. Oh yeah, don't you guys have a class quest in you know, this place or that place? Oh, let's go do that for you right now. Really? Yeah, no problem, blah blah blah. And they walk out with, you know, all the loot and all the gear that they're gonna need for like 5-7 more levels, and it just became this thing that was actually kind of fun. And if you look at it in a Star Citizen context, sure, there are no swords, there are no spells, but the core idea is still the same. This guy in an Aurora might earn, say, 5,000 UEC an hour. You know, now that we've seen the travel time between planets. But if he's crewing a Polaris and he's helping defeat Vanduul void bombers invading the system versus, you know, defeating a couple of pirate auroras interfering with a comm relay, chances are his overall earning potential from that kind of content is going to be a heck of a lot higher. And there may be other things that go along with that, like reputations that might be a little easier for him to grind a little later if he's already got a bit of a head start because he was helping do these missions a lot sooner than other people were. When you look at comments on like Spectrum or the old forums or whatnot, and you see people going like, oh my god, you know, these new ships came out, the Polaris, the Idris, or blah 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 blah, and they're like, oh my god, I can't afford that, I feel like I'm falling behind. Truth is, like, you're kind of in a really enviable position because as one of those masses, you actually have an intrinsic value in you as a player that players who own larger ships are going to need, because no matter how good an AI is, no matter how easy the interface is to say, oh, target this ship instead of that ship, or, you know, try to prioritize these ships, we want to get them down first, that sort of thing, and trying to micromanage a bunch of AI when you can just get on Discord or voice comms or whatever we end up using, Spectrum possibly, whatever, and just say, hey, prioritize these ships over those ships, if things change I'll let you know, and then that person just does it and you don't have to worry about it because you just had to say it and they're doing it. There was no AI interface and, oh, please repeat command, did not hear it clearly, or blah blah blah. None of that. You just tell them to do it and they do it. And having, you know, at least intelligent people as your crew, it might allow you to do more with your ship than you would be able to do with an NPC crew. And so sometimes when you hear people in orgs saying, oh, you know, we got to recruit this guy because he's got a Polaris, or we got to recruit this guy because he's got an Idris. Ooh, you know, that's all well and good, but all these guys out there with the Auroras and the Mustang game packages who are kind of sitting on the sidelines and just saying, oh, you know, I bought a game package and we'll see what happens. I think those guys are going to be very, very valuable in the future, especially to people who have, so to speak, endgamed themselves before the game was even out. You know, the people who went out and bought those big ships. Because there isn't a rigid sort of leveling structure to a game like Star Citizen, that means that those players can be instantly exposed to whatever that endgame content is, and they can instantly become high earners within that content, even if they don't have the ship. They just need to have access to the people who do have the ships and do their job and do it well, and they should have a reasonable chance of earning some really decent income, especially for someone just starting out with an Aurora versus putting around in that Aurora running, you know, packages to and from this space station and that, you know, store in Area 18 or whatever those missions end up being. Personally, when I kind of look at it, of course, I look through the lens of my gameplay experience, and I see it as kind of being like those old dungeons back in the day, gathering a group together, being the tank, being the leader, and kind of pulling people through. And I kind of look at Star Citizen, once again, through that lens. Other people may see it differently, but that's kind of how I see it. I kind of look forward to the days of kind of bringing my Caterpillar back from a mission and saying, all right, XO, take Bay 1, all the loot in there, split that 50-50 between you and me. Cobb, you take the other 4 forward base, sell it, get the ship refueled and rearmed, and then split the rest amongst yourself and the crew. Everybody, we had a great night tonight, let's do it again tomorrow. That sort of thing. That's kind of what I look forward to. Now, of course, having said all that, that naturally dovetails into the topic of recruitment. And that's a topic for another time. In the future, I know there's definitely been people asking me about this. The problem with Star Citizen right now is, even though there's a a lot of cool shit off on the horizon. Oddly poetic moment. We're not there yet. There's really not enough game to really sink our teeth into and play without burning out on really quickly, because there's just not a lot there. Of course, 3.0 offers a lot more, but are there really going to be that many missions? Is there really going to be that much to do before we start kind of doing the same thing over and over again? Probably not. And this is definitely not a game that I want to burn out on or have played, hours and hours of, when there really isn't hours and hours of really engaging gameplay out there yet. So we will deal with the topic of recruitment at some point in the future, hopefully in and around a 3.0 non-PTU public release. But for right now, that's going to be the show for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.